welcome. Are you ready to live your sparkle? I'm your host, MJ Lambert, and I am delighted to bring to you a presentation of Who Does She Think She Is? A transparent conversation with some sisters who will share some barriers that have blocked their sisterhood, and we will discover together ways to unblock them. Hello there. I am your host again, MJ Lambert, and I am so delighted to have you here today. How is your Sunday? I hope that you have enjoyed your weekend and you are indeed living your sparkle with your family, getting in your self care, your exercise, preparing a good meal, or if you're in warm weather, simply enjoying the great outdoors. We're going to have a very candid conversation with you today. And the topic, of course, is who does she think she is? Barriers blocking sisterhood. And I am again your host. We are going to be speaking with or listening to Christy Little Jones, who is a relationship coach, CJ Whitfield, Dorn Simpson, and Kathleen Jackson, who are panelists in the transparent women that I shared with you who have decided that they would like to share their stories while we're on our journey to developing better relationships with the women in our lives. Ladies, welcome. Welcome.
Hi.
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 Hello there. And well, let's go ahead and get started. First, I want to let our audience know that hey, we're just ladies, and we're going to have a friendly conversation like we've been doing before we got started here today. We have a lot in common, and we have some things that differ, which make us unique, which makes all women have great relationships if we allow it. Let's get started with our first guest, Christy Little Jones. Tell us a little bit about yourself, Christy.
Hello, ladies. My name is Christy Little Jones. I am a wife of almost 20 years. I am a mom of three rock star teenagers. I have been a relationship coach for the last 18 years, where I really support and encourage women as well as help engaged couples prepare for marriage and married couples in crisis fight to stay married. I'm a podcaster in addition to a marriage and family champion and the chief cheerleader for women all over the world. So I'm super excited to be here and I love sisterhood.
Oh, Christy, we're so delighted to have you, and we cannot wait to be inspired by your experience and your words of wisdom. And now we would like to bring Dorn Simpson forward. Dorn, tell us a little bit about yourself.
I'm a mother of three, two girls, adult children, all adult children, and one son. I am a grandmother of five, three boys and two granddaughters. I am also educator and coach. I last 25 years of education management and contract management, as well as a small business owner. And I really enjoy and I'm inspired by watching young women develop themselves and really look to themselves to be empowered and be powerful in their field and in their industry. And I do want to impact Also some other new small business owners as well.
Thank you, Dawn. We're so glad to have you with us. Kathleen, come on in.
Hi, everybody. Hey, ladies, be empowered. Um, I am Kathleen Jackson, and I'm a wife and have been married for 32 years. Praise the Lord. I'm a mother of two adults. I have one son who is 24, a daughter that's 27. I am, of course, a Christian, love the Lord. I'm a development specialist. I have been working in the field of development for over 20 years, ranging from business development to external affairs development. So it's been interesting. I'm looking forward to the conversation. I can't tell you how many years I've waited for a group of ladies that can be authentic about what their issues. So I'm looking forward to the conversation and enjoy everybody.
Kathleen, we're so delighted that you are here with us today, and we're already basking in your light. Let's welcome CJ Whitfield to the stage.
Hi, everybody. I'm CJ Whitfield. I'm a native Chicagoan. I live in Dallas, Texas. I'm the mother of one son and two daughters. They are all adults, managing their own lives and careers and living independently of me, so I'm happy about that. I have my own career and profession. I'm a public health educator by training and degree. I have worked in the field of pharmaceutical sales for more than 2 decades. And now I am a business owner and entrepreneur. I cater to the Medicare population like myself, seniors, and I promote Medicare plans and final expense plans, and just educate the community about how Medicare and Social Security works. So that's my passion today.
And you know, ladies, what a wealth of experience that each one of you bring to this discussion. And I know that the discussion is going to be rich. Let us just remind everyone about what our conversation is about today. It is Olivia Sparkle's presentation of Who Does She Think She Is? It has to do with barriers that are preventing sisterhood, preventing those effective relationships that each one of us wants to have, but sometimes can be difficult for us to have. And so at this time, I want to share with everyone what we're going to be talking about. You know, I can remember when I was a little girl, from really my earliest recollection, my grandmother would say, you know what, Michelle, you will probably be able to count your real friends on one hand. I really didn't understand what she meant. Uh,
Mhm.
as I've grown older, I've come to understand how people weave in and out of your life at different seasons. And I do believe they really are friends for a time. But you know, there's some people who are here for a season, a reason, and you do have people who are present for a lifetime. We're not talking about those kinds of people today. We're talking about those relationships that never get to be seasonal. They never get to be for a reason. And they certainly never get to be for a lifetime, but we want them to. Something happens to block, to create a barrier to those relationships. And that is what we're going to talk about here today. Some of the barriers that we have noted that have come as to play for blocking these relationships, one is trust. We're going to talk about trust. We will talk about how fear plays a role in really blocking relationships, polarizing our ability to even start friendships with people. Comparisons, and you know that's a doozy. People constantly
Mhm.
comparing one another to each other. Somebody's hair is different. Their body type is different. They have a different relationship with somebody else. They live in a different place. Even aging can be a problem. Your relationship status, whether you're single, whether you're married, your religious beliefs, we're going to tap into that. And lastly, we're going to dive a little bit deeper and really try to talk about the why. The why. Is it really having to do with how personal insecurities that maybe have developed, like what my grandmother told me, was I insecure about the possibility of not having more friends than can be listed on my hand? We're going to talk about what is the impact of our life experiences on our personal insecurities as well. So let's get started. I'm going to kick us off with the conversation surrounding trust. And for that conversation specifically, we're going to have Kathleen Jackson. She has told us that she wants to stay on the stage and have this conversation. So we're going to have Kathleen Jackson stay with us for this talk. And we're also going to have CJ Whitfield remain with us on the stage for this conversation. So, ladies, go ahead, talk to us about, just openly, we're on the couch, it's Friday night, we have our wine or water or coffee if you want to have coffee, and we're just talking about some experiences that we've had that, the trust wasn't there, and or trust was lost. Jump right in, either one of you. And Christy, be listening, because I really want to hear what you want to say and tell us when we're done with these conversations.
Well, I jump right in. I think I kind of most of my life lived my life through rose-colored glasses, always expecting the best out of everyone. And if they didn't quite live up to what I expected, oh well, I found a reason to rationalize why that was okay. But after a number of bumps and bruises and hiccups in the road, I had to sit back and reevaluate that position. And I had my father to say to me, daughter, anyone will do anything at any time. And I was an adult. And I said, oh, Daddy, please don't say that, because that was just a foreign concept to me. And I found that to be true. And I live with that understanding now, so that I'm not knocked off center when someone does something that is so out of character that I don't expect.
For me, I think it started, and like you, CJ, I looked for the good in everybody. I thought everybody was true and honest, and you had a lot of people around you, and you just thought, oh, I can trust this person. And then when you find out, and it was could have been something like, someone saying, oh yeah, she told me this, and oh, we're so excited, and oh, whatever, whatever. And then you find out by overhearing from someone else, the question was, so what was she really talking about? To question what it was that you were saying. And it made me think, well, did they not trust me, or did I not trust them? And those kind of things, being able to sit back and reassess the people that you had close to you that you felt you trusted. It's like, well, do I really trust them? So that if, as a result of that, it causes you to kind of back away from relationships, with females especially. Because you feel like, I really thought this person was my friend, and I could share whatever I wanted to share. And then you find out from someone else what you shared with them, they shared with somebody else. And next thing you know, everybody knows everything, and each person has a different version of what you said. So for that, you just say, I'm going to limit the people that I allow in my circle. And you find out you may only have 3 people in your circle that you're close to, that you feel you can trust.
Scenario, ladies. Say, for instance, you develop, or you believe you're developing, a very close relationship with a person. And you've done so many things together. You have shared experiences that perhaps you haven't told anyone else. And you really come to believe that this person is a person of trust. This person has endeared themselves to you, and you believe it's reciprocal. You've endeared yourself to them as well. And say about 5 months later, the person comes to you and says, everything that I told you about me wasn't true. I only told you those things because I wanted to test you, to see if I could trust you with my life. Your response?
Well, I had a similar situation. It wasn't really a test. It was just someone told me about their personal, they were going through a divorce and they hadn't told anyone else in our inner circle. And so she came back to me some months later and said, "You didn't tell anybody that I was going through a divorce." And I said, "You didn't ask me to make a public service announcement. You were just talking to me." Because I'm able to hold a confidence, but that takes a certain level of maturity.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah. I have not had that, kind of situation, because I felt that if someone shared something with me, I would kind of think, well, I'm not going to share it, because they didn't ask me to, because I felt that if it was to be shared with anyone else, then that would be there on them to share it and rather than me. So, but and I often say, yeah, I have trust issues. And that's because you never know with some people, you feel like they're trying to befriend you, especially a coworker, and you feel like they're trying to befriend you, but you look at where they are in their position within the organization that you work for, and you figure, okay, if I share this with them, they can go to this person, and so I have to be mindful of what I share with anyone, because if I tell you something, it's because I don't mind it getting back to me.
Exactly. Mindful is the key word there because one of the pearls that I took from my mother was never say anything that you mind have being repeated. If you don't want to repeat it, don't let it
Mhm.
come out of your lips because if it's too good for me to keep, I can't expect anybody else to keep it either.
Yeah. Hmm.
Let's go ahead and transition to fear. Seems like a nice place to go, a nice street to go to from the street of trust.
Hmm.
The fear that you have to develop relationships with folks based on past experiences can play a really, really big role in how you allow people into your life.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah.
Can I
Um,
jump in?
Sure,
Um,
go ahead,
I,
Christy.
one of the things that I think that you shared, CJ, that was really important was the fact that it takes a certain maturity, right? It takes a certain maturity in a woman to be able to even value the friendship where they
Mhm.
don't tell a secret or share a secret, something that you shared with them. And I think with when women aren't mature enough or emotionally mature, they leverage information in their relationships because of their insecurities, right? So they may share something with someone that they want to be friend with or want to earn you know a friendship with, or just they want to get in with the good crowd. So if they have good information to share or gossip, that's kind of how gossip starts, right?
Mhm.
And that's a sign of insecurity. And I think that when as moving transitioning into fear, I think that we're only born with two fears: the fear of loud noises and the fear of falling. So every other fear is learned. Every other fear is something that we learn that is either projected onto us from, words spoken through an experience. And so fear from past experiences, 90% of 95%, I think it is, of people live or they're addicted to the negative emotions of their past. So when you are living in the negative emotion of your past, that is actually your predictable present, your predictable future.
Mhm.
So fear, you have to have this level of awareness and emotional maturity to really recognize, wow, I have a fear of rejection.
Mhm.
So I'm a people pleaser, right? So I try to I'm this person, I'm this way with this person, I'm this way with that person, I'm this way with this person because you're trying to be different because your fear is rooted in rejection. So I think that
Mhm.
identifying the fear is part of the issue, right?
Mhm.
Christy, the scenario that I mentioned, it really brings to my mind the person who would do something like that has a strong fear of being rejected
Mhm.
or even being ridiculed,
Yeah.
being ostracized, having someone not to accept them for what they are, and also fear that someone is going to report on
Mhm.
these really sensitive issues.
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
think I learned that I learned that same philosophy that you never, ever, ever share anything with anyone that you don't mind them sharing with others. I think I learned
Mhm.
that probably right after college, but again, I think we all have those experiences where we learn those things,
Mhm.
and that fear is, oh, that's a big, big, big issue in the barriers in sisterhood, like the barriers um, of knocking down these barriers. You have to deal with fear. If you are allowing fear to lead you and lead your choices, your actions, your decisions, then your relationships are really unraveling at the seams, because you can't you're giving all your power away to fear.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah.
Can I say something? One thing I recognize about fear is that, first of all, we all experience it, all sizes, all types of women, no matter what the economic background is, no matter how educated, how uneducated, no matter even if you have been trained through your childhood to be confident and have greatest self-esteem. You
Mhm.
experience fear at different points. And fear has this very wide spectrum, so that whatever the things that you fear in your 20s and 30s and the way you respond to that is very different than what you may fear and the way you respond to that in your 50s.
Yes.
So I think what we need to help women understand is that we all have that. We all struggle with that. And we,
Mhm.
it's just a matter of having, someone that coaches us and helps, helps us understand how to work through that and how to guide your thought process so that overcome that, because it does it affects. And I think for me, the place that it had the most impact is in the workplace. The workplace is probably the most, the hardest and the most challenging platform for dealing with fear, because you have a tendency to really experience different people. And when it comes to, and we talk about sisterhood, women specifically, and how they treat you and how they respond to you if you're in a leadership role, um,
Mhm.
you're in an entry level. But if you come in with a lot of confidence, if you come in self-assured and ready to hit the ground running and make some things happen, and maybe they don't really handle change very well, or they're not able to accept someone new very well, then you start really dealing with some of the barriers that prevent you from sparkling even in the workplace and in your performance. And that typically is that judging, misunderstanding you, um, and creating a perception that may not even be true, just based on their fears.
Mhm.
Turn, you walk away, and when you go into the next situation, now you're struggling with the fear that you're going to get you'll have the same type of outcome, or people will respond to you in the same way. So
Mhm.
that's just my experience with fear.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I really want to tie into what you're saying, especially about uh, those fears that come about and they transcend who you really are when you're in the workplace.
Yes.
I find, particularly in the workplace with women, um, people have certain skills and competencies, but we also have varied skills and competencies that differ from one another. And when we see someone who may have a competency that exceeds ours, or even someone whose competencies isn't even as high as ours, it creates a fear in both ways. I like to, as an administrator, refer to the success of staff as having glows those things that are fantastic, and areas where we need to grow. And the areas where folks typically need to grow, it's very interesting, the response that we get. The fear comes about because they don't want to reveal the need to glow up. They don't
Mhm.
feel it. And that fear is not just a blocker for the relationships that you have in the workplace with colleagues, team leaders, team
Mhm.
members, but it also polarizes your growth. So
Mhm.
fear not only blocks your relationship with others, in my experience, it also blocks yours. And I can honestly say that I have been victim of that.
Mhm.
It have
Mhm.
fears of maybe even overworking because I never want the perception of not being able to accomplish a task, knowing good and well I need to look at the I need to go back to the encyclopedia on this one. Okay, I need to get on the internet. I will be up
Mhm.
all night long so I can
Yes.
make sure that before the presentation occurs, I already know
Yeah.
everything that there is to know in the presentation. And so
Mhm.
have you observed that in yourself or in others?
Mhm.
Mhm. Mhm.
How do you combat that, Christy?
Um, the fear. Repeat your question. Repeat. Combat the
How do
fear.
you combat the kind of fears that will even prevent you from succeeding yourself?
Yeah.
Mhm.
So one of the biggest area, or one of the biggest, I think, areas for growth or to glow up in is really to check your inner thoughts and
Mm.
your inner conversation. That is huge. Like, we are our worst critics. And, I had 3 kids in 3 years. And so they're now 16, 17, and 18. But
Wow.
one of the things that I was very mindful, I had the privilege to be able to stay home with them for the first 15 years. And I created what was called a death jar. And
Mhm.
so every time they said something negative out of their mouth, they had to put, we would get them quarters for like allowance and things like that. They had to put a quarter in the death jar. So oh, I can't do that, mommy, or I can't, or that's dumb, or any of those things. I'm dumb. I'm not smart. That's a quarter in the death jar. So it ended up being to like $1. And I would do this even with my sisters. Oh my gosh, I'm fat. Look at these wrinkles. Like, oh, that's $1 in the death jar, dollar in the death jar, because
Mhm.
the power of life and death is in your tongue, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
So it was so fabulous. It was so amazing when my kids' friends started, they would come around and now they were saying, oh, Hayes, that's $1 in the death jar. Or Blaze, you got to put $1 in the death jar. Like, it just was infectious to them, being mindful and conscious of your words out of your mouth. So sometimes
Mhm.
most of us say it, right? Most of us say it out of our mouths. But when we think it, right, it is like thinking it and now saying it, guess what happens? That manifests,
That's
right?
Mhm.
Got
Mhm.
to recognize that the life and death is in the power of your tongue. So what is it that you're saying? You got to understand what you're thinking as well. So if you're afraid and you're fearful in the workplace, or you're fearful, wherever situation you're in, what is it that you're saying to yourself? What is the conversation you're having with yourself? And are
Mhm.
you literally speaking death to yourself internally, or are you saying it verbally out loud? Like, I could never
Mhm.
go to that position. I would never be good. I'll never get a promotion. I'll
Yeah.
never make that kind of money. Like, what is it that you're saying that is literally fear being expressed out loud?
Yeah.
I'm going to
Yeah.
pause for just a moment to remind our viewers that we are talking about who does she think she is, barriers affecting sisterhood. And our guest today, you're seeing Christy Little Jones, who's our relationship coach, CJ Whitfield, Dorn Stinson, and Kathleen Jackson, who have agreed to come on and help to engage us in this conversation. Let's go ahead and move on, ladies. We're talking about next up on the topic, we just moved from fear. Let's talk about comparisons and how comparing ourselves to others can create a barrier to sisterhood.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
That's a big one.
Oh yeah.
Here again, monitoring your self-talk is very, very important in terms of comparisons. You have to be willing to do some introspection, to look at yourself and to listen to yourself. But it's also helpful to have a cadre of friends who will allow you to be your genuine, authentic self.
Mm-hmm.
For example, I was having dinner with a couple girlfriends, and we were discussing how I had been personally attacked by another group of women, and then another group of women in Chicago. I'm like, why are they attacking me? I'm just regular. And they looked at me and said, you're not regular at all. But this is, I happen to speak this to them, but I've been thinking this a long time. I'm just regular. Why can't I just be accepted and fit in the group?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm regularizing myself to fit in. So that speaks to comparisons and your inner thoughts, in my view.
Yeah, I agree with that 100% about um, surrounding yourself with people that you not only who you trust, but really celebrate you and support you. I think that,
Mm-hmm.
like you were, my grandmother told me the same thing, MJ, about you. If you can count, you can, if you have one friend, then it's like, wow, if you can count them on your hand, you are blessed, right? So
Mm-hmm.
it is developing and cultivating those relationships to be able to celebrate one another and not compare. If you're comparing, then that's fear really speaking out loud, because you feel like you can't have or you can't do with what they do or what they have, right? So I feel
Mm-hmm.
like that being selective with the people that you spend time with is really important. But then two, it's about really embracing who God created you to be. It is
Mm-hmm.
are were created to look like you for a reason.
Yeah.
There's a reason and a purpose for it. And so it really breaks my heart when Dove did a study, I think it was like 2010, and
Mhm.
96% of women all globally don't would not consider themselves beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
What? So this, we know this is an issue, right? We know that
Mhm.
this, the media has totally distorted
Mm-hmm.
the truth of who God said we were, that we are beautifully and wonderfully made. He
Mm-hmm.
distorted, this media has contributed to distorting that, right? In addition to just some things that we've been exposed to as kids, with how we grow up, and I feel like that comparison thing is the biggest thief. It will steal your joy every day, and social media kind of
Yeah.
breeds that comparison, and it's really it's tough. It's a tough
When
one.
do comparisons become ugly? You know, as a former kindergarten teacher, I can recall comparisons being the best thing in relationships between girls. Now, we're not talking about boys today. The conversation is about girls, so let's be reminded that we don't have a bias. But particularly girls, the comparisons was, oh, I like your ribbon. I have one too. Oh, I
Mm-hmm.
like your dress. Oh, you have one too. I want to wear jeans like you have on jeans. Oh, you know what? Let's play in the same area today. We
Mm-hmm.
see that when kids are naturally drawn to one another, and comparisons are what make you unique and it makes people attracted to you. At a
Mm-hmm.
certain point, those very differences that people have as we grow. Some of us don't continue school. Some of us may have children early. Some of us may get married first.
Mm-hmm.
Then we suddenly recognize that skin color is a difference.
Oh
Or some
yeah.
people might even recognize that when they are younger as children, if they're in a situation where, oh, which one is not the same? So, how have these kinds of comparisons in your experiences affected your relationships?
I can speak to that. When I would say probably up until I was 10, it was that kind of, oh, I like your ribbon. I like your, oh, you have a bag of candy. Can I share with you? Let's play in the same sandbox. When I was 10, my family moved we lived in an apartment, and all around were a mixture of homes and apartments. We moved to the south side of Chicago. And our block, and most of the neighborhood was predominantly white. There wasn't a lot of blacks then. And moving there, going to school, the first thing they said to me, these kids, "Oh, you're so black." And I was like, "What now? What was I black when I lived over here?" But if I didn't realize I was black, when I went there, I realized I was black. And so what happened was that you had kids that would say things like, "Oh, you're the spook that sat under the door." They were cruel. And you heard, "Oh, you so black, you shoe black," and whatever, whatever. Then you had girls who wanted to jump on me. And I had never fought before in my life. And I was like, "Why do you all want to fight me?" They told me, "Your hair is long, you dress nice. So is that a reason to act that way?" And so one day when I came home from school and I told my mom, "I am tired of these kids calling me black." I was crying. I said, "I am tired of them calling me black." And my mother told me, she said, "You are black, you're proud, you're beautiful, and you're a child of God." So after that, I went on the playground. Here I am. Coming now. I got something to fight you with, and it was that. But you found that it wasn't the white kids that were calling me black. It was us calling me black. It was, and of course I was, always the darkest one in the class or whatever. And they were just, "Oh, you're so black." Then when I got into high school, you heard it, but you didn't hear it as much. But you just felt like, okay, this is what they're thinking. Okay, whatever. My mother told me, and I'm just gonna go with that. Then after going to college, you didn't hear it as much. But then when you hear it from adults who you think should know better to say something like that, like an adult said to me one time, "You're so pretty, but you're so black." And I said, "But you know what? Let me tell you what my mother told me." And I wasn't being disrespectful, but I responded back with, "I don't care what you may call me. I know who I am and I know whose I am." And so after that, I didn't hear it anymore. But the comparison with colorism, the dark against the lighter skinned, and your hair is kinky and your hair is straight and all those other things, once you realize who you are and you have confidence in yourself and you believe in yourself, those kind of things, those comments, they don't matter anymore. Because what I realized is that it wasn't the issue with me being black or my hair being whatever it was their own insecurities. They were uncomfortable with who they were and where they were in their lives. So I just said, move on and let's embrace sisterhood. Is about embracing each other, regardless. We're all beautiful in our own way, and just appreciate each other and what each other can share with each other. That's my take.
That's your testimony. And what a powerful one, too, to have overcome. But I'm interested as we move on in the discussion to determine, are there some personal insecurities that have been bred? Let's put a pin in it for a minute, Kathleen. We're going to circle back to that. I would like to hear what CJ has to say on this topic of comparisons.
Well, I agree with Kathleen that it's within our community that this colorism is most taking effect. I had a different experience on the schoolyard as an elementary student. It was not dark skin, light skin. It was who's the lightest, among the fair complected, who's the lightest. And as I shared with MJ earlier, I remember one day the child said, "Oh, Cordia, that's my given name. Cordia is the lightest." I said, "Oh, no, not me. She's the lightest over there." Because I never wanted to be the lightest, because light kids were going to get beaten up. Probably you're going to get beaten up. So I never wanted to be in that light kid crowd. Plus, my mother was very fair, so I consider myself light skinned anyway. But that's our community, and it's a problem that's rooted in slavery, which we didn't cause. So I don't understand why we're fighting each other about it, even in 2022. You know,
Mhm.
my pharmaceutical career, I walked into a doctor's office and he said to me, he just looked at me and he said, some of those slaves should have said no.
Oh no.
And I just walked out of his office and they never came back. It was a reference to my physical appearance, which I had no control over. This was a grown man, a graduate of medical school practicing medicine, who said this to me. So it's still permeating our relationships today, but we're doing it to ourselves and to
Mhm.
each other, and it needs to stop.
Mhm. Mhm. Yep. Yeah.
Very powerful discussion.
Yeah.
Very much powerful. It's amazing how we deal with those things as women. I know that each one of us have said in this panel anyway, and certainly we can have others, that we're married. Has
Mhm.
being married, or when you became married, did you notice a change in relationships that you had, or do have with some women being married?
Hmm. Um,
Not for me. I think that the my relationships actually got stronger, and I think that it also depends on when you get married. You know what I mean? Like, if you get married younger, or if you get married a little bit older. I was 32, and so um, I was able to. My sisters, the I call them my dream team, like the dream team women that my sisters that I need to when I'm feeling like, am I gonna make it to happily ever after? Or, oh my gosh, what have I done? Like, I feel hoodwinked and bamboozled, right? So this is where I could talk to my sisterhood, like my sisters, to be like, no, I know, girl, me too, me too. So I'm not feeling like, oh, okay, I'm not by myself. Like, okay, okay, I can do this, right? So it's just again the women that you're vulnerable with, that you're
mhm.
transparent with, and they are mutual with you in that relationship,
Mhm.
that really I feel like every woman needs. And I think that
Mhm.
platforms like this really help to not only model sisterhood, but to
Mhm.
really show that it exists and it's there.
Mhm. Mhm.
Let's move on then to personal insecurities. I'm going to bring Dorn back up on the stage for this conversation as well. You know, those personal insecurities, we can define them as, I think of personal insecurities as those personal damning feelings that we have that have grown out of experiences, perhaps their fears, perhaps in your case, CJ, where you had folks, uh, you didn't want to be singled out as being the lighter skinned person. How has that affected your relationships with others and the people to whom you become friends with?
Well, I've evolved on that because my original nuclear family looked sort of like the Cosby family. I mean, we had every shade of brown. I think most African American families do. But
Mhm.
now I allow myself to have a natural affinity for other fair complected women. Whereas before I would gravitate toward the darkest girl in the room because she's beautiful and she's brainy. You know, God didn't give me all the goodness in the world, He sprinkled it around. So I
Mhm.
still allow myself to love sisters that are more richly melanized than myself, but I also allow myself to love and embrace women that are of lighter complexion, if that makes sense.
What I'm hearing you say is there was a time when you seem to have gravitated toward the more melanated folks, and it sounds like you perhaps maybe hid yourself so that
Yes,
you wouldn't be singled out as the light skinned person in your
exactly.
home.
Hmm. Yeah, that was my modus operandi for a long time, because it was comfortable and it was safe. But now that I'm older, I've allowed myself to embrace ladies of all hues of our
Mhm.
community, even
Mhm.
even to my choice of sorority, because I was hesitant to pledge a sorority of my choosing because it had this image of being all light, bright, and darn near white women, and
Mhm.
that wasn't the reason I was attracted. I was attracted because they were alpha women, and mainly because they wanted me. They wanted me. I didn't have to work hard. I didn't have to gravel on the floor. They invited me. They invited me. So, so I allowed myself to be a part of that group, knowing the history that's associated with that. So, to me, that's been an evolution on my part to come from the foreshadow.
And you know what? You mentioned sororities. Um, that seems to be also in some arenas a barrier to sisterhood with with other women. Um, in the Greek within the Greek society between different sororities and also non Greek women versus Greek women have
Mhm.
we have a composite of both categories here in this panel today, which says for sure that the relationships can be strong regardless of your affiliations. You
Mhm.
know, have you all experienced those situations yourselves?
No.
I can't say that I have. I knew when I was in undergrad, there were, so many different sororities, and they were asking me, "Oh, don't you want to pledge?" The Deltas and the AKAs and the Pearls and the this, that, and there were so many. And I think really well, I know the reason that I didn't pledge any of them was because of the hazing and what they went through. And I just felt that I didn't have the patience not to become violent. I'm not violent, but what I witnessed was with one of the sororities, they had all of the girls, had a couple of girls that were pledging to to get into a booth. They told her to lay down, and they piled all of the coats on top of this girl. She could hardly breathe, and that sorority ended up getting suspended from the campus. I can't remember which one, but eventually what ended up happening, I think, was that several of the sororities got suspended because of the hazing, and and some of the men, the Kappas, were always getting suspended. So it was just, okay, maybe this is not something I could get involved in. I appreciated the friendships that they had, but I think at that point in my life, I was more focused on, I modeled. So I was doing a lot of that, and that was taking a lot of my time in addition to school and working. So that's why I didn't really do it so much. It didn't really bother me so much. But no one treated me differently. They were asking me to pledge, but I said, no, you pull that on me, it ain't gonna happen. You
When I was in school, when I was in college, I often felt if you did not select a sorority and you didn't pledge and you weren't accepted, that group of women or young ladies, I should say, did not embrace you if you weren't a part of their sorority. And that you really could not make any real meaningful connections
Mhm.
the women if they were the young ladies if you weren't a part of their sorority. So there was an isolation.
Mhm.
I made a choice to pledge. I mean, I didn't allow that to affect me, but or affect my decision. But I did kind of. It was a subtle, and maybe the perception was all up on me. Maybe that was just me feeling that. But I did feel that they were very close knitted together, and any female or young lady that chose not to be a part, there was never a way to really connect with them and be a part of have any type of relationship unless they were a part of the sorority. So I did feel a certain isolation.
Mhm.
Now, of course, as an adult, you don't feel that as much. It doesn't feel the same, and I think they're pretty open to embrace all women, and you can have relationships no matter what you've chosen or what path you've chosen.
And so I would like to bring in the topic of aging where women are concerned, because certainly when we grow, when you're in college, for instance, and you're a young woman and you're at that age where maybe you're selecting your friends or whatever organization you might join to associate yourself in, your mindset
Mhm.
is different. And also your actions are different. I always say if you get one person together, they're themselves. If you get two, they make a third personality. And I can honestly say that even with this very specific conversation where you all are reflecting on past experiences in college with sororities, and I'm glad you brought out the fact, Dawn, that sororities today in 2022 are very, very much inclusive um,
Yes.
and
Hmm.
doing a lot of work and have really always have been the nature of the sorority to be service providers and to help provide service to all of mankind, to work um,
Hmm.
in concert with public organizations to make sure people are understanding their health, to make sure that people who are in need have that, to make sure that students are getting into college,
Yeah.
focused on healthcare for women, as I said before. And so, but again, those are fear from personal experience
Mhm.
Hmm.
that you just mentioned, and it's very real and transparent. It's
Hmm.
comparisons that you've
Yeah.
Mhm.
noted. It bred some personal insecurities for
Mhm.
you
Yes.
in terms of whether or not, am I the person to be asked? And also trust.
Mhm.
Is it safe for me to do? Safe in any relationship that we're going into. I am so delighted that you all have been so transparent and willing to come on and have this conversation with us. Let us remind our viewers that we're talking about who does she think she is, barriers to sisterhood. We've talked about some of those barriers. And now I would like to have a specific conversation with Christy Little Jones. Hopefully, you will give us some more in depth ways to break those barriers. So, Christy, let us have your party input on these topics.
Sure. Thank you so much. I thought this was a great conversation. I thought this was just the different stories and the perceptions being shared was really great. There's a few things that I think in breaking barriers regarding sisterhood that are really important. One, I think that being a sister to someone else is huge. It is huge because when you open the door to develop a friendship or a relationship and you invite that person out for coffee or tea or just to get to know them, and then you are really modeling sisterhood to them by being transparent, being vulnerable, getting to know them. I think is really important. The other thing is really recognizing why sisterhood is so difficult for you. Like, were you betrayed, or do you feel like you were betrayed when you were a young woman by somebody that you trusted? So now you no longer get close to women because you no longer can trust them, because of something that happened 10 years ago, 20 years ago, maybe even longer. So what is it that you're bringing from the past into your present moment? So you've got to identify those insecurities so that you know how to address them. So you know what work needs to be done, the inner work, the healing that needs to take place, so that it doesn't hinder you from developing these amazing relationships with other women that are that can really change your quality of life because they really can. I think the other thing too is there's a conscious belief. Those are the things that we know, and then there's subconscious beliefs. These are our deepest fears. These are the things that we really believe. So really, I confronting them with, whether it's with a coach, whether it's with therapist, whether it's with your people that you do trust or a family member, and let them know, be real with yourself, because the longer you try to hide it, or the longer you try to stuff it,
Mhm.
the longer it's going to take for you to really not only step into your power and your identity, but really develop authentic relationships. I think that's really important. Uncovering the truth is huge, where you are, again, it's part of this process of, you know what? I really am afraid of rejection.
Mm.
This is why I am a people pleaser, right? So identifying the insecurities that you're a people pleaser, you're afraid of rejection or whatever it is, or you know what? I'm really unapproachable. I'm very bitter. Why? Because I'm angry because my my husband had an affair and left me to raise these kids that I never really wanted. Like being really honest with uncovering what's really going on, because you can't deal with it unless you really can get down to what you really believe. So uncovering the truth is really important. I think you also have to reprogram your thoughts. Critical. Again, watch your thoughts over the next 24 hours. And, if it's taking a glass or a cup and then take some coffee beans or regular beans, and every time you have a negative thought, I want you to put a bean in the jar, right? And just for 24 hours, see how many beans you collect with the negative thoughts. And then I want you to start writing them down so you can really identify what they are. And then you want to start reprogramming your mind, reprogramming, or really renewing your mind with with the truth. And the truth is in the word, right? The word of God says what it is that we're supposed to be. He was in me is greater than he was in the world. So anytime that you are thinking that you're not, then that is a lie, right? So identifying those lies and really renewing your mind with the truth, I think is really important. And so I feel like overcoming your fears, identifying what it is that your beliefs are, and once you align your thoughts with your beliefs, with your actions, and you are in alignment with your purpose, your life will completely change. Your relationships will completely change. And one last piece that I want to leave you with is really being the sister that you desire in your life. There's
Yes.
so much power in that when you are being the person that you want to attract, being the person that you'd like to cultivate a relationship with, because then you start attracting those same people with those same qualities to you. And it really is powerful when you are serving, when you are supporting in a way that you desire to receive it.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Christy. And I want to thank all of our panelists for coming on today. This has been a fantastic
Yes.
way for us to have this conversation. And I'm just wanting to bring our panelists back on the stage before we close out. Thank you to Dorn Simpson.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. And if I could just add, if I could just think of this one thing, in terms of how to be healthy for others, remember that every connection is leading you either to purpose or it's keeping you connected to purpose. And so embrace it no matter what. And we always have to understand that when we meet people, we meet them at different places in their lives, and we can't judge that. We can only try and help them to be healthier if they're not. And then we can recall, or we can, I shouldn't say recall, but we can take the lessons and recognize what's in us that needs to grow and that needs to develop, and how it's connecting us to our larger purpose. So thank you for this platform. This is a great way to keep the conversation going, to keep a safe place for us to discuss these things and understand and learn from each other's experiences.
Thank you, Dorn. Any other final thoughts?
I just wanted to share something quickly for any and all the women that are going to view this. I hope that everybody will kick down whatever other barriers they might have put up, erected, to separate them from other women. There is a poem on YouTube or in Google that you can pull up. It's entitled, "There's No Friend Like a Sister, in Calm or Stormy Weather, to help one on one's tedious way, to lift one when one goes astray, to stand with one that stumbles down, to strengthen while they stand." And I live by that. There's no friend like a sister.
Yeah.
I just want to say this was absolutely wonderful. I tell you, to be able to be a part of the panel, and thank you so much for providing this platform for us, to share. You realize, at least I do, that you're not alone, that there are other sisters who may have the same or similar concerns or issues or fears that they've all dealt with at certain times in their lives. But I tell you, I think the most positive thing we can do is to embrace a sister. No matter what's going on in their life, they may look like, dang on it, I bite you. But we don't know their story. You don't know what they've been through, what they're currently going through. So to be able to say, hello, is there something I can do for you today? In other words, how can I be a blessing, to you and to help you? And I think about how, there is nothing like a sister. I totally agree with you, CJ. But what I have found is that I have sisters who are not even my blood sister, and I'm
Yes.
very close to them. I'm very close to them, and they can be brutally honest with you, at least with me, and they'll tell you you need to pull back from that or whatever it might be, but appreciate the sisterhood. So I hope that we can continue to do this and to have these kind of platforms. You know, bless you all. It's just been great.
Yes.
And I want to say to our audience today, um, it really has been a pleasure. It's always a pleasure when I get an opportunity to come before you and give you a tip that could help you to live your sparkle. Living your sparkle really is about what is inside of you. I've said it before. It is the knowing, the pronouncement of you that really ignores any other pronouncement that anyone has ever said about you or thought about you. It is that unction in your spirit that you know that the Lord has planted there. And every day that we're living, we're not to be so humble in a way that we shy away from that glory. That glory in things that we do and who we are is all to the glory of God. So
Amen.
because
Amen.
of that, we have a responsibility to shine. Shine
Mhm.
in the workplace. We have a responsibility to shine with our relationships, with our families. And we have a human responsibility to do that in concert with others because we are all God's children. If you are a woman who sparkles, as I know that you are, then that means that you are an authentic woman of faith who is unapologetic about it. So please make sure that you share the stream. Make your comments. We're going to be present to respond to them, and we will be back very soon with another edition. And we're going to call this program Woman to Woman. It just came to me as I was talking and listening to the words that the women were sharing today. Have a wonderful, wonderful Sunday and have a wonderful week. God loves you, and I do too.